So the doctors then put me on this levothyroxine, which anybody with thyroid problems is pretty much on it. This is what helps regulate all of these bodily systems. What it does is basically takes the place of your thyroid. However, it's not a perfect science, and everything that the doctors said it was going to do for me, everything that was promised, in fact, none of that actually happened. I had some hair, sometimes I didn't. My skin didn't look so great. Going to the restroom may be an option, and sometimes it may not be. The truth is, I followed the doctor's orders because I knew that that was what was supposed to happen. That's what I needed to do. I was feeling pretty desperate, feeling rather aged for the age I was, knowing that I wasn't, my temperature wasn't regulating very well. Nothing really seemed optimal. Everything was off. There just didn't seem to be a really good answer. I followed the doctor's orders because I knew that that was what needed to happen. At this point, once I've taken the medication, that's it. You take it. It's life-sustaining. It replaces the function of your thyroid in theory. The medication is supposed to rejuvenate you, give you a clear thinking mind, and so many other things. But truthfully, none of that stuff ever came along with it. Basically, I just took it because I knew I needed to take it. There weren't any options at that point. So it was actually 6 years ago, almost to today. Actually, it would be the 16th of September that I took the last medication. I was going to the doctors and for my yearly checkup, my yearly labs, and it turns out that they discovered that perhaps my prayers were working because my labs were so far off the chart that they couldn't. I was toxic. I was so toxic that they were highly concerned for me. They didn't know how I could be this toxic and still living. How could this possibly be? They shook their heads and said to me, "How do you feel?" And I thought, well, how am I supposed to feel? I didn't really want them to respond because I didn't want their suggestions, truthfully. So I didn't wait for an answer. When they said, "How do you feel?" I said, "I feel terrific. I feel better than I have in years." They didn't tell me I was toxic. They just said, "How do you feel?" So I was going to church on the usual Wednesday night. There was a special teaching about communion, and communion was not unusual for me. I take it at home by myself often, but at that particular day, I felt a certain compulsion to just hold the communion wafer to my thyroid area just as we were praying. As I held it up there, I reminded God that everything that happened so many years before was more than enough for the healing that I had expected to receive. And I thanked Him for that. And I truly believe that even though I believe that this healing happened long before this, I believe that this was also a turning point. There was an inner knowing that seemed to point the way to this is a completed work. So we went back to, or I should say, I went back to the physician's office. They're testing my labs, and they are saying, "Oh my goodness, you are so toxic, we have to take you off of this medication." So they did. Actually, they cut it in half. In the meantime, labs came back a second time that said, "We have to cut this out altogether." My question was, if this is life-sustaining, how could I come off of it? The instructions always said anything greater than 3 days. could cause me to just die, to every bodily system to shut down. This was controlling everything. They did cut my medication in half, and then they cut it off altogether because my labs were still toxic. They didn't want to tell me they were, so I did actually go back to another doctor's appointment where the doctor tried to suggest and point to some other things, but everything that she suggested was the opposite of what was happening in real life. So I couldn't really accept what she was trying to tell me.
For instance, what do you mean?
So basically, she was saying that I should have this symptom, I should have that symptom, I should be barely functioning, but yet none of that was true. She would say, well, how are you feeling? And I say, I feel like half of my age. I said, I feel like I could start road races again. And, she said, she didn't tell me to not run road races again, but this is how I was feeling. I was feeling so young and so rejuvenated. By this time, I was off. So they took me off the medication. They took it off of me. They took me off of it completely. Then waited to see what would happen next. It was like a big experiment. I knew that after the third day, things could get bad really quickly. But I persisted. I just got up and went to work as if nothing were any different, and believed for the best.
So the doctors were waiting for the call or to find out
Yes.
if you were dead or alive.
The doctors were waiting to find out what was going to happen next, as was I. However, I did have faith. So recently, I went back to the doctor's office, and he asked me, how are you feeling? What's going on? And I don't understand why you never seem to fit the mold. You never fit the mold. You are always the opposite of everything medicine tries to say. So he said, because of this, we have to search other alternatives. Why could this be happening? Why are your labs off so much? And he pointed to a brain tumor. And he said, have you done some research as to why this could be? And I said, no, I didn't, because, if you look at the internet, everything that you see, you believe you have. I said, I wasn't going to introduce that to my thought pattern. I just wasn't going to do it. And I said, is that right? And he said, yes, you're right.
Did you tell him you prayed for healing?
I did tell him I prayed. I said, this is how I can explain it. I prayed, and I accepted the work that the Lord had done. This is how I explain it, doctor.
So, how long has it been since you've been off of this medicine?
So, 2 days from now will actually mark an entire year. I will have a 1-year anniversary of no longer taking this medication.
How do you feel?
I feel 20 years younger. I feel great. I feel rejuvenated. I feel like I can dream of road races again. In fact, my treadmill went to the basement yesterday just for that reason. So in conclusion, I wanted to say that I didn't stop my medication on my own. What I did was pray to God, who liberally provides everything that we need. And in response, I said, let it be unto me according to your will, Lord. In that, then, I set up the perfect situation whereby my telling my story will also help you realize your story. And I believe you will too.